why is the tar sands important?
The tar sands is extremely important because it is one of them, well, not one of the, it is the worst environmental.
Continued 513 kilometers.
The tar sands are very important because it is, I would say, by far the worst environmental project. I mean, projects with an environmental impact on Earth today, or in my opinion, any time in history. And it is not just locally devastating. And by that I mean, you know, it impacts on the environment, it impacts on human health. The native people, the Chippewan people living there, they're having sky-high cancer rates, and at that, with very exotic types of cancer. They themselves have pinpointed the cause, and that is that they have been eating deformed fish in the Athabasca watershed, that they have historically taken food from, and in terms of the environment, it is toxic, you know, way off scale. I don't know how they could possibly be allowed to do that. I mean, I have been an environmental technologist for quite a few years, and I have seen a lot of projects turned down by the government because they did not meet environmental standards, and this one here is way off scale. I'm talking about astronomically, and there is, if it was policed or scanned or assessed in the usual way, there was no way that a permit could have been permitted. But because of the scope and the scale of this tar sands operation, money once again bent politicians, and politicians once again crush scientists, so the general public doesn't get to hear about it scientifically, and they've come to accept it because of all the political and economical talk that it is going to be very good for the Alberta economy, that it is Alberta's Premier Ed Stelmach said that it is for the quality of life of Albertans, and it just shows, this one single statement just shows how ignorant and how either ignorant or actually evil this man is. And to call him ignorant is being generous, because that makes him perhaps not potentially evil, but if he knew about the long-term and short-term environmental impact of the tar sands, and his government still pushes it so hard, and by that I mean they're intent on making it tripling or quadrupling its size by 2020. That means only 10 years from now. The Earth is going to be driven right into a runaway global heating, I should say, by that, because already, even without it, we are already melting the methane, melting the permafrost, which contains a huge amount of methane, and methane is probably, I would say, not probably, but definitely the most important, the most dangerous substance on Earth today. It's far more dangerous than all the nuclear weapons added together, and probably much more inevitable. So the tar sands, if it goes into production the way that the government and the oil companies have intended it to, it is going to be one of the last coffin, I should say, by that, because already, even without it, we are already melting the methane, melting the permafrost, which contains a huge amount of methane, and methane is probably, I would say, not probably, but definitely the most important, the most dangerous substance on Earth today. It's far more dangerous than all the nuclear weapons added together, and probably much more inevitable. So the tar sands, if it goes into production the way that the government and the oil companies have intended it to, it is going to be one of the last coffin, nails in our environmental coffin.
But now global warming doesn't really seem to be that bad. It's only gotten a little bit warmer, and then they're talking about just a small degree seems to make such a big difference. I don't understand what they're talking about. explain that?
Yes. First of all, we're talking about a general average global temperature change, and but in real life, it certainly is not the case that the entire globe warms up uniformly, every single square inch on Earth rising by so many degrees as predicted. No, that's not the case. Places will warm up much more steeply than just 1 or 2 degrees. It could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 degrees. As some of the local places have already reported, and some others will warm up less, and some may even cool down. So just because some localities are cooler than usual does not mean that global warming does not exist. It just means that they are an exception to the rule. So global warming, if we're talking about a 2-degree temperature rise, or 3 degrees, or 5 or 6 or 7 degrees, we are talking about a general average. So if we're talking about, say, 6 degrees temperature rise, it doesn't mean that every place warms up by 6 degrees. There will be certain places that will warm up by 10, 12, 13, 20 degrees maybe even. And I'm talking about Celsius. Whereas certain other places will still not experience any